back?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Hey, welcome to another episode.
Yeah, you get to start. I'm just going to sit back.
I get to start?
Go ahead.
What are we going to talk about? Do you want to capitalize on the last one a little bit?
This is your topic. You go ahead. You can capitalize. We don't even... the difference is we record these back to back. People don't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they do know that, but... Man, it'd be cool if it's not like Star... Remember when Star Wars, the Empire Strikes Back ends?
Yeah, I never understood why they did that.
So it's like... It's funny. Kids today, they just don't appreciate it. I tell this to my students because I teach high school. And they go... I said, man, that dude was frozen in carbonite for like 3.5 years for me. That was painful. Like, I'm waiting to figure out what's going to happen with him. I mean, that was a horrible ending to a movie that didn't have the third part already made. Batman, we used to see as a kid, it'd be like Monday, and then, tune in next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. And you had some resolution.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could do a two-parter if you want, but we just have to tell
We'd have to actually have a topic.
We would.
Which I'm not so sure we have right now.
Well, you've no topics? We could talk about the podcast itself.
Okay.
No, that's a horrible topic. That's an absolute horrible topic. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. How about judging people?
Ooh, I love this one. I did a sermon on this when I was a lay preacher for the Lutheran Church in Hamlin, New York.
Are you judgy? Are you not judging me, are you?
Am I judgy?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting as I had we had a picnic at our house, and I was sitting in the garage with a couple of my cousins, and we were talking about some things in the garage that were very near and dear to my heart. Met my one cousin has a very strong faith, and we share that common. And we were talking about some things like that. And my other cousin who was sitting there with us, she understands it and looks at things a little bit differently or whatever. And then we get up and go in the house, and in the house, they're having the polar opposite conversation. Like it was, what's basically... It was kind of like the conservative versus the liberal conversations type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't say anything, but I'm just kind of thinking it's kind of interesting how you can be in your own house and walk from one conversation to another conversation like that. But the funny thing is just your presence alone makes some change the conversation, which I don't really like that because, then are they judging what I'm thinking about what they're saying, or am I judging what they're saying?
This makes me think of Survivor because I feel like if you're genuinely into something, whether it's a conversation or I would imagine same thing with a reality show, you get to a point where it just doesn't matter who's around anymore. So I feel like if you can walk into a room and you interrupt a conversation and the tone of the conversation changes, there's only one of two reasons in my mind. Okay. And obviously, we say this, but I mean it. Like these aren't definitive answers. These are opinions. But to me, based on my personal experience, either one, they're talking about something they shouldn't be talking about, period. Like there's already a level of embarrassment about it. So for instance, if you're telling lewd jokes or jokes about that are racially insensitive, any of those types of things, and somebody walks up on you and you're kind of like, oh, we got to be careful because somebody else has walked into the room, then that to me is a form of self-censorship. Like there's a part of you that knows that you shouldn't be having the conversation that you're having. The second thing that I think could happen is sometimes you're just not that committed. So back to the reality show, like I feel like you can get to a point where you forget the cameras are on and you forget that there's other people in the room kind of observing. So that the conversation is important enough, it's intense enough, and it's authentic enough that you don't have to worry that somebody's walking up on it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I mean, but at the same time, if your conversation changes based on the people who walk in the room, I mean, is it like you said, doesn't that speak of the level of truth that you're speaking about?
Well, it's either truth or commitment. So you can speak about something that you aren't confident about. That doesn't mean that you're lying. It just means that you aren't necessarily confident in your stance, and maybe you're self-conscious, or you may be confident in the way you think, but the way you think is contrary to either the public, the majority, or maybe in the group. So, for instance, I'm a Muslim. I'm at a gathering with mostly Christian people, and I start talking about my faith. Maybe there's a part of me that doesn't feel that confidence, or I don't feel like I'm in the right place or time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the context of the conversation. I don't want to get into too many details because I want to show some respect for the people that I was
Yeah, well,
having conversations around.
There's that fishing period too, don't you think, where you're kind of throwing out the hook to see if
who's going to bite.
Well, who's like, whether it's the same fish that's in your school. Like, I mean, I run into it all. I think we just had this conversation outside while I was grilling, where I was at work and we were having a pride parade, and there was a group of people that were very anti-pride parade. The funny story is I actually had a student, he says to me, he goes, well, I'm not going to the pride parade. And a lot of that you could tell came from his parents. So he says to me, he goes, well, if there's going to be gay parade, well, then there should be a straight parade too. So you're a history teacher. Why isn't there a straight parade? I just said, well, I don't know. Straight people had a lot of years that they could have put their own parade together. They just didn't do it. I mean, like, whatever. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. But again, before that conversation, I had a group of people who were very anti this pride parade. They felt like they were being forced to attend it by the employer, and they were trying to bring me in. They were feeling me out. Like, hey man, hey, this pride parade.
Were they judging you by the way you look? Did you look like a Trump supporter?
Oh no. I don't think it was in the context of a Trump supporter. I don't know. It's funny that you say that because it's like you wonder why people think that you are the way you are. I had a situation with an employer once where we had this is way before transgender was as mainstream as it is now. So we're talking, well, it's been 10 years now, as a matter of fact. So I remember this stuff comes up in my Facebook memories. So I got called into the supervisor's office because we had a transgender client that I was working with when I was a social worker. And somebody had made a comment along the lines of, I think they asked her if her drivers, if her car insurance had changed because of the gender.
Remember you told me about this one.
And I've wound up using that as a stand-up joke and everything because there's a bit of absurdity to it. And to me, it's more about the car insurance discrimination thing, which drives me nuts than it has anything to do with transgender. But whatever the case. So I get pulled into the office and the supervisor says, this transgender client was offended at something that was said at the family gathering that you attended. And he says to me, he goes, now listen, I know you're from Albion. It's a small town and you guys usually are pretty narrow-minded when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I really need you to set aside your personal beliefs and, stop, judging people or whatever. Or words to that effect. And I just looked at him like, what? Like because I'm from Albion, I'm like anti-transgender. I just looked at him and I go, well, first of all, I said, I didn't grow up in Albion, but either way, like, how do you just judge somebody based on where they come from? And then you're going to lecture me on being sensitive.
And judgmental, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me.
You're being telling me not to be judgmental, but you're judging me based on where I live.
Based on where I live.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, that's a lot of it.
Well, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I would give off the vibe that...
I think people need to just maybe take the philosophy of if they don't have a dog in the fight, then maybe they shouldn't be in the fight.
Well, yeah, a lot of people gamble with these types of topics and beliefs and things like that. And I work very closely with these kids, and a lot of them have mental health issues, and to some degree that could be related to the way that they view the world. But I still try to educate them in the fact that there's a difference between an acceptance and a tolerance. In fact, somebody said to me, one of the students asked me today, we were doing a lesson, man, these kids, it's funny, these kids teach me a lot of things, and it's nice. But a kid said to me, and it really made me think, he said, what's the difference between coexisting and getting along? It's pretty intense when you think about it, because there's a very big difference. You can coexist with somebody that you don't get along with.
Right, because you're basically just tolerating their existence.
You're coexisting. I mean, you're not. I don't believe that. So that means that you don't.
What we're supposed to be doing, in my understanding, is loving one another.
This is going to sound really overly simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
He may hate me for it, but a lot of it to me goes back to like sports teams. Okay, so if I'm a Bills fan and you're a New England Patriots fan, we can kind of have this rivalry, but we should be able to coexist. Like there's a part of me that's like, I don't like Patriots fans, especially the week you're playing my team. But we can sit in the same stadium and we could coexist. I'm not going to root for the Patriots any more than I expect you to root for the Bills. And I think to some degree that speaks to coexistence, whether it's even if it came down to the fact, let's say you don't believe in gay marriage or whatever, okay? But you still got to coexist with people that are gay, that are married. Like, wouldn't
it be easier just to love them unconditionally the way you're supposed to?
You can't love them if you don't agree with what they've done. How do you love somebody whose views are categorically opposed to what you think? I mean, I'm asking this not from from personal experience, but
I have to do it all the time.
Yeah. So how do you love somebody who does something you just absolutely don't agree with from a moral standpoint?
The same way I love somebody that agrees with me.
Which is how?
Dude, that's a tough question. I don't know. You work on it.
You do.
I mean, it's not, I don't think we talked about, a little while ago, you were talking about the kid that said something about that you knew what he had said could come from his parents.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of that comes generationally speaking, or, to frame it in the context of the original sin aspect of it, where it's fed through the generations, but that doesn't make us unculpable of correcting that.
Yeah,
we have a responsibility to correct our mistakes. And if you're going to hate someone just because of an ideological disagreement, even though it's fundamentally wrong, that's on you. You have to accept that. I mean, if somebody were to ask me one thing, if they want to ask me to have a discussion with me, it's one thing. But if I walk into the room and they know, oh, he's not going to agree, so we're just going to change the subject, that's on them. That's not on me. I didn't say anything to make you change the subject. I didn't say anything unloving or unkind to you. All I did was walked in the room, but that I don't necessarily agree with some of the topics you're talking about, so you just change the subject. So I suppose in one respect that's loving, I suppose. Or is it just...
Or is it coexisting?
Yeah, or is it coexisting? Yeah.
There's a fine line.
Yeah.
There's a very fine line. But I feel like with a lot of these kids that I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, because I would think that I shouldn't have more influence on any of my students than their decent parents do. I mean, if they have horrible parents, I have no problem accepting the fact that I may indeed, and I know that in some cases over my teaching career, have had a stronger influence on a kid that had a parent that was usually an absentee parent. But I feel like in some ways I'm trying to give this kid some baby steps too. You can't go from I hate everything about this person to loving him. So
Right.
maybe to some degree, coexistence is the logical step between hate and love. Man, I just pulled that out of the air. It almost sounded very deeply philosophical too.
I don't know. It's much like a lot of the questions that we ask here. How you get there doesn't, and I am not ignorant of the fact that I, even to the best of my abilities, can be judgmental on people or not love them the way that I'm supposed to, but I try to make that the binding agent, of how to treat people. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of things that go on in the world.
Oh, for sure.
But it doesn't mean that I'm going to hate on you because of it. Because I don't know, I don't, just like they don't know my background, I don't know theirs. And I had somebody not too long ago, when I offered to pray with them, told me I could take my prayers and shove them up my keister sideways or something like that. And, he kept repeating that he knew what I wanted out of him. And I'm like, I just want the best for you. That's simply it. I mean, if you're hurting and I offer to pray with you, you can certainly say no, but to react in a matter that's violent or something like that. I mean, in this case, he wasn't really hurting. It was just a matter of this is what we're there doing. And, I can accept somebody say, no, we're good. I'm good. Okay, that's fine. But to react negatively like that, thinking that there's some kind of hidden agenda that I want on him, like I want to put a notch in my Bible or something like that, is not, not what I was trying to get across at all.
Well, maybe that's been his experience.
I'm sure. And that's the whole point of, it actually kind of made me sad after I had a little time to unpack it. And
I love that word.
Yeah, me too. It's one of my favorites. But actually kind of made me a little bit sad that I would have even participated enough to evoke that type of a reaction. But I, also have to assume maybe there were some other things I didn't know about going on, because I do believe that there's a lot more going on in this world than we think there is, and a lot more than we see. So I think there was probably a little more going on, a little more, that wasn't visible to the eye in that particular case, but didn't mean I didn't love them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I was wishing for, was that, the best for them isn't necessarily, that God's going to come down and swoop in and correct all the problems and all the misfortunes and the hurt that, you experience through childhood, or the traumas that people have experienced through their churches, or different people that are supposed to be an authority over them and stuff like that. It's not about that. It's about me showing compassion and love to somebody because I can.
Well, I mean, there's branches of Christianity that do play the numbers game. I mean, it becomes almost like there's some religious movements, or whatever you want to call them, that have the same approach as a sales organization. They're looking for recruits. They're trying to bring people in. They use the same type of tactics that you would use to.
They're going to have
sell a car.
They're going to have a hard time in the next 15 to 20 years keeping their doors open, because it is not Christianity at this point in the game is not what it was even 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Well, I always remember the line, "Do you know where you're going to go when you die?" Yeah. I mean, that was the.
I'm more worried about. Do you know how to live right now, currently, as you're living?
Oh, for sure. No, I agree with you. Yeah. I think we do a disservice to people if we just. You're showing me the phone. All I see is blackjack.
Oh, blackjack.
See? Blackjack.
Here.
What's that? 20? Oh, that's our countdown.
Yeah.
Man, I was looking at it. It said 24. I was like, oh my God, we've gone 24 minutes. It meant we had 24 seconds to wrap up this episode. I'm going to let you wrap it up. I'm going to sit back just like I let you open it.
Oh, so I get to wrap it up?
Yeah, wrap it.
All right, I'll wrap it up with, hang on, let me shut my timer off. I'll wrap it up with just try to be kind and loving to one another. You know, regardless of your theological points of view and stuff like that. And, you know, it's got to start with you. You know, whether you agree with people or whether you disagree with them, the state of the world, regardless whether we like it or not, it starts with you.
Yeah.
You know, we can't change politics. We can't change people's ideologies or anything like that, but we can change ourselves with a little bit of grace.
That's right. And we can be that shining example.
Cheerio, Wheaties, Rice Krispies.
Is that just...
Saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Signing off.
Tell people that. Subscribe.
Oh, yeah. Hey, subscribe to this, would you? Because Tom's whispering that I should do this.
Please tell them again.
Subscribe to our podcast and leave it a positive review on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you can't subscribe, tune in 2 weeks for another episode.
Woohoo! All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks.